Hey, what's up, guys? Team Hard Life Captain Alberto Zertuche here. Alright, so for today on Storytelling Thursday, sorry I don't have my gimbal and so forth, so I'm doing this as a quick little thing. One of the things that I want to address is safety right now. Everybody's getting back into shark fishing and kayaking and all of that. I want to tell y'all one of my stories where if I hadn't had my vest on, I wouldn't be here right now. And one of those days was out on Bob Hall Pier, and it was blowing 35, 40 miles an hour, gusting way over that. And so I had my vest on, and normally with the pier, we can use the pier to kind of block some of the wind. So what you do is you hug the pier, and we were literally kayaking like this, you know, at an angle alongside the pier to get to the end. So I get to the end, they drop my bait, I take off. I'd ran like 3 or 4 baits. On the 4th one, I got eaten by a monster wave. I was out probably 600 yards out, and this wall of water came up, and I knew there was no way I could paddle over it. So what I did was I dumped the kayak. I went overboard, and you know what we do is we tie a rope to our paddle, but we have one-piece paddles. But at the same time too, when you have these paddles, you've got to turn into them, you know, have it tucked into your body so that way it doesn't split in half. Okay, so what that does is the kayak catches the wave and it acts like a float. So it pulls you right to the surface, and you'll be skipping across the surface as that wave is pulling the kayak. But you tie it also to the side to where the point on either end is not coming at you, or it, you know, you understand what I'm saying. You don't put it on the tips. You tie it on either side so that way you can pull the kayak to you, and the blunt edge or the side of the kayak will be coming at you. Okay, so now that you know how we tie our paddle to our kayak, well, once I got back from dropping the 4th bait, I caught a wave, and it was totally by accident, but this thing picked me up and started pushing me toward the pier. Well, I saw the pier coming, so I leaned it back. The bottom of the pier just, you know, flashing right before my face, which meant if I was sitting up, I would have eaten concrete. Now, mind you, the pier is 16 feet above the water, and obviously you're floating above the wave or whatever, and yeah, I would have eaten concrete. Well, where it caught me, the T on the right side, I'm having to do all this by hand, but on the right side of the T, if you're looking toward the beach, so there's a weather tower. Where right as I cleared underneath the pier, I started scraping the right pylon of that weather tower, and I could feel it, and as it was coming up, and as soon as I could sit up, I leaned a little bit to the left. But when I did that, I hit the other pylon on this side and started scraping off of that, and right there is where I got rolled. Like, I made the whole wave, but I was already coming out from catching it. And when I hit that other pylon, I got flipped over right there on the back side of the pier. Well, at the time it was cold, so I had water boots on, so that way when my feet hit the floor, you know, if I got knocked out of the kayak, anything I would touch wouldn't rip my feet open, because being cold and in the water, it's a bad case of hurts. So I had the vest on. I went under, and I was getting sucked up back underneath the pier. The paddle breaks on me. So the 2-piece. So for this trip, we were borrowing my buddy's 2-piece paddle. Well, even though I had tucked it underneath me, this way it sucked out, and it still broke through the rope, broke through the paddle. So I was holding one end of the paddle, the kayak got pulled away from me, and the boots that I was wearing, the zipper had actually opened up, so the boots were flared out, and I was getting sucked up underneath the pier as the wave retreated back, I guess, is the best way I can describe it. And so I'm underwater holding a paddle, and I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, you know, what's happening? You know, I was stuck in some kind of like wash underneath the pier. And so at that point, finally the vest, I guess it kicked in enough to where I was able to come to the surface, and that's where another wave hit me and pushed me away from the pier. And so, and mind you, when the wave finally let me go and I got to the surface, caught the next wave, I could see the kayak, and it was probably 100 or so yards away from me. So I start swimming toward it. I get to the kayak. I try to get on top so that way I can rest up there. That wasn't happening. so much water had gone in through the side of the scupper up in front, you know, the hatch, that it wouldn't allow me to get on the kayak. So, you know, I tried and tried and tried until I wore myself out, because you know, being in the water is a bad situation, always is. But I knew if I could have enough strength to hold onto the kayak, I'd be good. So wave by wave, it would hit me and push me closer and closer to shore, until finally I was able to stand up. Well, I get to shore, and something in the back of my head reminded me of a young kid that had passed away, and they called it dry land drowning. They had inhaled water, but not enough to make them cough it up or something like that. I don't know exactly how it went, but I remember that he was swimming in a pool, he inhaled water, and he didn't cough it back up. So it starts to fermentate inside your lungs, and it fills up your lungs with liquid, and you end up drowning. So at that point, I was like, man, I know when I was trapped up underneath the pier in that washing machine, that I got water in my lungs. So I leaned all the way forward, and I could feel water just start coming up my nasal cavity and stuff, and I start coughing it up. And, you know, it was a pretty good amount. It really was. And what's crazy is, while I was on the kayak and breathing, I felt like I was fine. But all that water, once it came up, I guess it was hitting the top part of your lungs, and it was making that reflex where you started coughing it. That's what ended up happening. And the guys that had seen what had happened, they all came to help me out, which is a good thing, because I was beat. I was exhausted. I was tired. And kayak to the truck, get it tied up, and so forth. But it goes back to say, you know, wear your vest. You know, it's one of the biggest things that can save your life. And at the same time too, if you buy the right ones, if you're knocked unconscious, they'll right you up to where your face will be above water so you can breathe. Because when you're knocked unconscious, you could be face down, and your body's reflexes for you not to breathe in water will not go into effect. You will breathe in water, you will drown. So I hate to close in on Storytelling Thursday on one of these kind of videos, but I'd rather get the knowledge across to all those that are out there shark fishing. Please wear your vest, guys. You know, I would rather hear of a great story of, you know, what y'all caught, than having to hear that another Coast Guard chopper went out, you know. Alright guys, so y'all have a good one. Thanks for watching, and like I said, I'll help y'all out any way I can. And, you know, if it takes me sharing some of my bumps and bruises along the way, I'm going to go ahead and do it. So y'all have a good one. Thank you very much.